Okay, so we're here with Freddie.
Hi.
NAMM.
How you doing? So I'm just going to talk about our brand new plugin today. This is a plugin called Jotter. It's a utility plugin designed for sharing notes, comments, and feedback with clients. So essentially there's two versions of Jotter. There's the plugin version here, which is a paid-for license, and then there's a standalone version, which is free. So the idea is that when you have a bounce or whatever it is that you want to send to your clients to get mix notes, you can bounce it out of Pro Tools or Logic or whatever DAW you're using and encourage your clients to download the free version of Jotter. They can import the audio into here and then they can make their comments directly on the waveform. When they export that, and it exports the CSV file, so it takes up very little space, when they export that and send it to you, you can import it directly into Jotter within your Pro Tools session. So that means that you've then got the time codes all already here. You know exactly what they're talking about. I had a mix last year where when it got to the point of mix notes, it turned out that the drummer thought the chorus was in a different place to everyone else. So he was giving mix notes, asking for something in the chorus that didn't make any sense. And it turned out we all realized it was because he was talking about a different part of the song.
That's a great idea, man.
So this means you don't have that same problem. You can also use this as like a dynamic to-do list, so you can tick off what's already been done, you can hide what's been done, or you can just see what's already been done. And yeah, that's kind of it. It's pretty straightforward. You've got control over the time base, whether it's seconds, frames, milliseconds, the frame rate. You've got a time code offset. So for example, if you've got some daylight at the start of the session, but you've not bounced it out with that, you can just add this in as an offset to make sure everyone's in sync. It's also the first time we've added in font size control to one of our plugins. I think we always thought it was superfluous until now. Turns out it's actually pretty useful. So I think we're going to be adding that in more often. And it's also the first plugin of ours where we've added in some accessibility features. So this has screen reader compatibility. We've also added in, and don't ask me what these are because I haven't learned them yet, but we've added in a bunch of keyboard shortcuts, again, to make it more helpful for people with visual impairments.
Amazing.
And that's about it. This is Jotter. It's out now. It's $49. That's about it.
Great. And what's the kind of difference between, I'm sure the free version's amazing, but what kind of things will you get if you actually pay for Jotter? Like, what are the advantages of using that version?
At the moment, the only difference is that the paid version has the VST3, AU, AAX versions. So that means that you can use it within your session and it saves within the session, all that kind of stuff. Whereas the standalone version, it is literally, the free version is literally just a standalone bit of software. The idea behind that is it just means that people who don't work within a DAW can still use it. But presumably when you're actually making those changes, when you're responding to the mix notes, you're going to be doing that within a DAW. There's a few additional things that we're considering adding in, but I don't know if I should say those on video just yet. But yeah, watch this space.
Great, and it looks great. There's just so many great implementations for this kind of thing.
I feel like so many people have like really sort of hacky ways of doing this already. So someone was telling me they create like a blank track in Pro Tools and they'll make a blank clip and the title of the clip will be their note. Yeah. Or like I know, for example, my girlfriend, she tends to bounce out an entire session and then upload it as a private SoundCloud thing for herself. And she'll make comments on her own private SoundCloud just for her own reference. And when I showed her this, she was like, oh God, that's so much easier than what I'm doing at the moment. So
I thought you were going to say she'd come up with this by doing that, but
no, this
the
was
other way around.
I didn't know she did that. It was just coincidental. I was showing her the new plugin. She was like, oh, I kind of do that already, but in a really like awkward way with SoundCloud. So yeah, it's
amazing,
perfect.
Really good. And with NUGEN Audio, what other plugins do you have? What else is available for people?
So we've got a few different things. A couple of the newer products are Halo Vision. This is our surround and immersive analysis suite. So this currently runs in up to 7.1.2, but we're about to launch a 7.1.4 version as well. So it has a few different views. It's got your frequency spectrum, your true peak meters, your time code. I'm going to get somewhere where there's actually signal coming into it, so it looks a bit more exciting. You've got the location haze here, so this is showing you a top-down view of where the audio energy is focused in the room. This one is the frequency haze. It's the same kind of thing, but banded by frequency. We've also got the correlation views. Correlation web, each of these lines represents a pair of channels. So if one of these lines lights up red, it means that those two channels are currently out of phase. Similarly, with the correlation matrix, each square represents a pair of channels. If it's green, it means they're perfectly in phase. Red means they're out of phase. Yellow means it's neutral. And both of these have a feature that we call contextual correlation. That's a new way of measuring correlation that we've come up with. Essentially what it means is that it only shows you a phase issue if the signal level is close enough for it to actually matter. So a lot of the time you might have two signals that are out of phase, but if one of them is way louder than the other one, it doesn't really make a difference to the mix itself. So this, you can set the threshold and things, but essentially it means it only shows you phase issues where it's actually going to cause problems for the mix. So it's just one less thing for you to have to think about when you're working in immersive or surround.
Brilliant.
This is really customizable. You can rearrange things however you need. You can resize things however you need. You can have as many or as few views as you want on the screen, whatever it might be. You've got really simple view here. You've got things that are a little bit more complex. It's yeah, completely customizable, and that's about it.
And I see you have a sign here that says buy the software you use. So what's your pricing model? How are you pricing these?
So that's a good question. So Jotter, the first thing I showed you, is $49. Halo Vision, I think, is $299 off the top of my head. This is actually a sign from Imster. They've put it here, and I felt too bad to get rid of it. But also I do agree with it. Of course, I want people to be buying our software. Yeah, the other new thing we have, or relatively new, is Paragon. This is our convolution reverb plugin. I'm sure you're familiar with convolution reverb, but this is the stereo version. It uses a new method of convolution based on resynthesis. Basically what that means is that when you adjust the decay time, the room size and so on, it doesn't use time stretching. So basically it's a little bit cleaner sounding than some convolution reverbs, because when you make these adjustments, it actually generates a new impulse response based on like a resynthesized version of that same impulse response. So it's just a little bit of a cleaner way of doing things. You can also adjust the mic distance. You can adjust the frequency-specific decay time. So if you click decay here, that's really useful if you've got like a vocal, for example, that's got a really long reverb. You want a bit more clarity, but you don't want to reduce the overall decay time. You can zone in on that person's fundamental frequencies of their voice and just reduce the decay time for that narrow band without reducing it overall. Yeah, a bunch of different things. Everything on our website has a free 15-day trial. Check it out, see what you think. Yeah, that's about it.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you so much for showing us them, Freddie.
Cheers.
You're the best dressed guy at NAMM, I think.
I try my best.